Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
To my colleagues on these benches, I am proud of all we have achieved together and proud of each and every one of you. To my successor and each of you, I will give my full support. To all colleagues across the House, can I wish you good health and happiness. To all those in the gallery whose lives have been changed or improved by this Labour government, and all across the country who struggle to be seen or heard, you're the reason I came into politics. To my wife and children, I love you. Goodbye.
Welcome to Quiet Riot, the podcast that keeps its cool head when all about us are losing theirs. I'm Alex Andreou.
And I'm Naomi Smith, here to fill the unforgiving minutes with facts and studies.
All while not making thoughts our aim, by giving you practical calls to action so that you're a player rather than a spectator.
So pour yourself a cool iced tea, turn that fan up, and help us prepare for another Quiet Riot.
Hello and welcome to Quiet Riot. I'm Alex.
And I'm Naomi.
And I'm Kenny, here to treat these two imposters just the same.
Now this week, as the UK is about to switch horses mid-race, so many things stand on a knife edge. Indeed, both domestic and global affairs feel like a 50-50 coin toss, or toing toss, as Naomi likes to say. But which reality do we think will manifest itself this summer?
And on tomorrow's Quiet Riot B-side, we look at one of the forces that many believe has a thumb on those very scales. We're going to be talking to award-winning journalist Peter Gagan about his latest investigative work, this time into Palantir.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. How are ticket sales going, first of all, Naomi?
They're good, and a huge thank
From
you.
our correspondent.
Thank you to everybody who has bought tickets. And a bigger thank you too to everybody who's subsequently emailed, because they're a Ko-Fi backer as well, asking for the details of the pub that we're going to gather in. We will be sending those out very soon. So if you've not yet bought your ticket, please do. And then once you have, if you're a Ko-Fi backer, then email us at the usual address for details of how to get backstage.
Yeah.
I think we've sold about 200 tickets. So yeah.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. Let's sell 200 more and then we'll be happy.
Yeah, I'll take that. So we're halfway sold out, basically, are we?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
We'll get there. No problem. The second thing I guess I wanted to mention before we get into stuff is, because I've had a few people emailing and some asking on Blue Sky, why are we not doing anything on the Anne Widdecombe
Murder. Yeah.
And I mean, the answer is really quite simple, because the police have asked people not to, and her family have asked people not to, so we're not. I don't know why this should seem so completely strange. I guess it's a representation of the times we're living in, but if the police come out and say, please can you not speculate because it makes our job much harder, and the family and friends have come out to say, please don't speculate because it makes this so much more painful for us, I don't know why the default position wouldn't be for every media organization, don't fucking speculate.
And I've even had journalists call me and ask me if I know.
Really?
And I'm like, sorry, I know I'm good. I'm not that good.
I mean, nobody knows.
Come on. We are getting semi-regular updates from the police. I think the people leading the investigation at Devon and Cornwall have done a couple now to sort of keep people updated.
Yeah.
And you know that we also don't know, you know, even if everybody hadn't asked us not to comment, which, as you rightly point out, Alex, both the police and the family have asked people not to, we don't know anything. We don't know anything that hasn't been reported. And we certainly don't know it for sure and shouldn't be speculating over it.
Quiet, Riot.
One of the effects of polarization is that results become binary. Not too bad outcomes disappear. It's all a series of all is lost moments followed by ticket tape parades. Look around you to Britain, Europe, the world. By the end of the year, it's either utopia or dystopia on most fronts. The war in Ukraine, the conflict with Iran, the midterm elections in the US, the change of leader in the UK, the Clacton by-election, the markets, the economy, our relationship with the EU. There are no median scenarios anymore. It's all or nothing, feast or famine, by-election or bin collection. So we thought we might tease you with an optimistic view of how things could turn out in each case, followed by a realistic assessment of how they probably will. And who knows? Sometimes the positive vision could be the realistic outcome. Shall we start our international focus and then narrow it down to domestic? Because in some ways, a lot of the domestic economic fundamentals depend on what happens with those global flashpoints, don't they? So, Naomi, I'm going to give you, first of all, the difficult task of giving us the optimistic take of how the Iran situation might resolve itself.
Okay, can I get to the optimistic?
Yes, you
But
can.
begin with a bit
you
of
can travel. You can make it
yeah.
a journey.
Let's do a quick sit rep. So that June peace deal, the interim peace deal, is now in tatters, and we're in a shooting standoff over who's going to control the strait. The US have restarted their maritime blockade. They've got about 20 warships, hundreds of military aircraft in the region. And of course, the IRGC have declared the strait closed until further notice. This follows Trump proposing a 20% cargo fee for ships transiting the strait under US protection. He then reversed that a day later after he had calls from kings and emirs saying he doesn't think anyone should charge a fee for the strait.
I think you should develop the Trump impression in full, by
Okay.
the way. It's kind of asking
Needs a bit
to
of
go
work.
that
Needs a
direction.
bit of work. And so like his kind of guardian angel toll booth lasted about 24 hours. And it's collapsed, most critics say, because of the vagueness of that deal. Paragraph 5 of the memorandum said Iran will use its, quote, best efforts for safe passage of commercial vessels. And they read that as confirming that it would control the strait. Washington, of course, reads it another way. So the war restarted, in effect, over this drafting ambiguity. Now, let me begin to get to the better news. I'll come to that properly in a bit. And that is Trump's domestic bind. Like, the war is very unpopular, and the midterms are the clock he's claiming he's not watching, but of course he is. It has boosted Democratic chances in the midterms this year, and it's caused these big divisions between MAGA and non-MAGA Republicans. And as we gallop towards those midterms, petrol is now averaging about 3.88 a gallon, and that is 70 cents higher than a year ago. Here in the UK, that is going to cause big problems for Andy Burnham and his new chancellor. Because of how unusually exposed the UK is, OECD is expecting our inflation to hit 4%. That makes us the second highest in the G7, I think. Forecasted growth very, very sluggish at 0.7, and a downgrading among G20 advanced economies explicitly because of this exposure to energy prices. Borrowing costs are the biggie. They leave you so little headroom to spend anything. And 10-year gilts have climbed above 5% this week. That's the highest since May, I think. So, against the backdrop of all of this, missiles in the Gulf are hurting remortgaging in Grimsby. That is really, really hard for an incoming PM who wants to bolster us all and make us all happier and more hopeful for the future than I think he would have loved. So that is, I think, the difficult backdrop. But the off-ramp does exist for both Trump and Iran. They both need an off-ramp. Trump, of course, needs cheaper petrol before November, at least as much as Iran needs to export more oil. And along has come Oman. drafting a proposal for managing routes in the Strait and is mediating pretty actively between foreign ministers involved. So the pattern up to now has been deal, ambiguity, collapse, escalation, repeat. Therefore, if, with the help of Oman, a new deal can avoid that vagueness, be more explicit in a way that is acceptable to all sides about the control of the Strait, we could see a breakthrough that would ease particularly energy pressure, the energy cost pressures that very much acutely felt here in the UK, but that would offer Trump the reason to go for it.
Can I ask you something? The drafting ambiguity and all of that, they are the technical reasons around which the disagreement is. So what's the actual bone of contention, as it were? What's the actual issue that's keeping the two sides fighting? Because Trump obviously wants it to end, Iran wants it to end, and so there must be something, I guess, substantive in the way of that. What is it? Do you get a sense?
I mean, I don't, because I just think Trump's mad. You know, I think he can't remember why he began the conflict, and all he knows is that he's bored of it. It's too complicated. He completely underestimated the length of time it would take, and you know, of course, there are pressures as well from Israel. He wanted this central prize of controlling the Strait of Hormuz. Essentially, he couldn't get that because he underestimated completely how effective Iran would be at retaining control. So look, it's not a ceasefire that broke down by some accident. It was pretty engineered to, with the hard question deliberately left blank about that control, and leaving it blank was the only way to get a signature before oil prices did even more damage.
It's fascinating, though, that even if he could have negotiated that ahead of time, he definitely won't be able to now.
No,
because if the last few months have served as a demonstration of anything, it's just how effective a weapon having control of that strait is. And how good Iran are at controlling it. So very much his own bloody fault, isn't it?
It is.
What about you, Kenny?
I think with Iran, the way things have played out, that the danger is now that it's miscalculation rather than a deliberate decision to expand the war. You know, it's one of these things where one attack kills more people than expected, or the United States feel obliged to respond to an attack, and and everything escalates that way. And then all of a sudden, everyone's climbing a ladder that was put together by idiots, really. So, the median scenario still exists, but I think it's simply unpleasant. There is no definitive settlement. There isn't a regional apocalypse, but there are these irritating, recurring crises. There is this expensive oil, and diplomacy is always conducted, with one hand just hovering over the alarm button as well.
Yeah, although I have to say, still the markets and the oil price is sort of, it's not where you'd expect it to be, is it?
No, it's not.
It's almost like they've now began to be able to price in the madness coming in from America. Or maybe I'm wrong in thinking that, but it just seems to me that each time the market reaction is slightly smaller. There's a sort of eye roll equivalent of prices going up.
I think what's happened is that the unpredictability has become predictable, as weird as that sounds. There isn't a surprise anymore.
That sounds perfectly reasonable, actually. Yeah.
Riot.
Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, You can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
Quiet, Riot.
Let's keep to the foreign affairs angle on all of this, Alex.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, it feels like there are some more genuine reasons to be cheerful than that I outlined at the end of my piece about Iran. Fill us in a bit.
So, and it's interesting that it's sort of connected to what we were talking about, because Arthur Snell had Jimmy Rushton on Behind the Lines, our sister podcast devoted to international affairs, for a sort of Ukraine catch-up. One of the big things that came up was this idea that America is now giving permission basically to Ukraine to manufacture Patriot 3 missiles. And the reason they're doing that, even though they'd settled into this relatively good working relationship of Europe paying for the missiles and America providing them, so they weren't providing them for free, but they were providing them. And the reason that has to stop now is because of Iran.
Yep.
So apparently, America has expended so much of its stock of Patriot missiles in Iran, and a lot of it is because they are so rubbish at it. They are so inexperienced at conflict, and especially with lots of senior people resigning because of Pete Hegseth, they are a relatively don't know what we're doing force now.
Yep.
And apparently they have expended up to 3 times more Patriot missiles in that effort than they needed to, just because they don't know what they're doing. The positive flip side of that is that they've given Ukraine the sort of technical specifications so that it can start manufacturing its own. It will still be able to buy them from the Americans if they have spare capacity. It really is something that moves us into much more a basis of self-sustainability for defense in Europe, because the Patriot 3s are a big part of that, a big part of aerial defense. And so, yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, it's going to be a transition, but ultimately, learning how to make our own over here is going to be just a huge advantage, I think.
Completely.
Looking forward to a more self-sufficient Europe. Let's have a little listen to Jimmy on Arthur's podcast.
I think this is a problem for the Kremlin. One of the bargains that Putin made with the Russian people is that you essentially put up with my authoritarianism and I'll keep you safe from the chaos of the 90s. And in regards to the war in Ukraine, if you don't oppose my war, it won't affect you, right? You can just carry on your life as normal, and the war, special military operations, the Russians call it, carries on, and life goes on as normal. And that's, in both cases, those kind of bargains have been decisively broken on his side, because it's incredibly chaotic, right? This fuel crisis, it's stopping, large parts of normal life for Russians. But yeah, I think you can see concern in the Kremlin. I think part of the problem is, although there is, this kind of discontent and this kind of sullen anger from the Russian people, they don't really channel it into anything meaningful, in the sense of that you don't see any form of actual meaningful political protest movement developing, because the one thing you can say about Putin is he has got an incredible handle on the domestic Russian information environment, and also he's very good at maintaining his grip on power. And I think it is a problem for the Russian government, and you will see approval ratings, as far as you can trust them, dropping for Putin and the government. But I don't think, unfortunately, we'll see anything more meaningful develop out of that.
And so the second part of that equation, the second part of why there is good news coming out of Ukraine at the moment, is because the Ukrainians are now allowed to strike deeper into Russian territory. They have been targeting oil refinery and oil export infrastructure. So everything from port terminals to refineries to pipes to all of that stuff. And what that has created is a huge oil shortage within Russia.
Yeah.
incredible as that might sound, that huge country with that huge capacity to produce fossil fuel is at the moment out of it. The queues around the petrol stations are day long.
Yep.
And their prices are sky high. And this does two things, really. First of all, because it attacks Russia's ability to export oil, it compromises its capacity for financing this war. The second thing is that it stops it from insulating its own public from the effects of the war, because they're seeing the queues. They are directly being affected. This is not now some, special military operation going on over there that has really no effect on Muscovites' lifestyle. It had already started to impinge because of limitations on internet usage and higher prices for food and things like that. It had already started to impinge in more rural areas because of the pure death toll of people being sent to the meat grinder of that front line. But it now affects every single Russian because they have to queue. Oil is being rationed, basically. And that really brings the conflict home. And I think that makes life a hell of a lot more difficult for Putin on two fronts.
Yeah.
And there is a third front as well, I think. And that's because this conflict has gone on for so long, that European support, rather than eroding, is now starting to become structurally embedded. Things like defense production are being linked. Sanctions remain available. And Ukraine's integration with European security institutions is very much deepening, all of which will make it much harder for Russia simply to wait for our attention in the West to wander towards a shinier emergency.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Ukraine has now become, defense important to Europe.
Yes.
Which is great. And also, I think as a side, their tail is up.
Yeah.
They feel like they're making impact. They're not in the situation where they have one hand tied behind their back, trying to defend their own country.
Defending Ukraine is a hygiene factor now for every government in Europe. We saw at Prime Minister's Question Time this week, Summer's last one. I mean, the number of mentions of Ukraine and well done on Ukraine, and we've always agreed with each other over Ukraine. It's a bipartisan issue in most parliaments across the continent. And we're also seeing now this move from turn disaster into opportunity. How can we get that military industrial complex going, boost good jobs, onshore manufacturing here in the continent? So I think, there's a huge amount to be positive beyond the very acute front line between Russia and Ukraine. On the point you were talking about, Russians now really, really beginning to feel it, everywhere across the whole country. There have been focus groups done that The Economist reported on, where Muscovites in particular are saying that their mood is turning from frustration to a seething hatred of government and the authorities. And it's not just the fuel shortages and internet outages that are making their lives miserable. It's this widening gap between reality and the Kremlin rhetoric that, as bad as their situation is getting, and the rationing of fuel and all the rest of it, at the same time, Putin is sort of becoming madder and madder with what he's addressing the country with, and putting all of this Pravda-esque spin on how great it's all going. So, dissent is becoming more open in Moscow from ordinary people, not just, a key figure opponent.
Although all of that in the context of how firm a grip really Putin has on the political system. Jimmy was saying to Arthur, don't expect basically some kind of revolt.
No.
But what will happen is pressure will build, and Putin might be dealt with from within the party structure, if that makes sense.
Quiet Riot. This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire! Whoa, that's good.
This might be the drink of the summer.
Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it, okay?
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers Concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
Quiet Riot.
let's come back to the UK and the domestic. Kenny, I wanted to ask you about the Clacton by-election, which is only a matter of weeks away, and actually we've got another by-election after that in Manchester for the mayor. But yeah, focusing in on Essex, how's it all going?
Well, we should start with an update, I suppose, because nominations close tomorrow. That's Friday, and in the well-publicised absence of all the main parties, apart from Reform, the candidate list, of course, just reads like a character list for a second-rate political farce. It includes the inevitable crypto dude, it includes Piers Corbyn, it includes Mr. Fishfinger, whose campaign slogan is, "Say tartar to Nige, you'll find us much better." And, oh yeah, of course, it includes Lawrence Fox. So, there's one person we won't be seeing, though. It's a wildlife campaigner called Rob Pownall. We've seen him once or twice at by-elections, and he intended to stand dressed in a full-body fox costume. And his original purpose was pretty serious. He wanted to confront Farage over his support for fox hunting and to argue that Farage couldn't present himself as anti-establishment while defending blood sports that are traditionally associated with landed establishment. Even he has decided the whole thing has become too much of a circus. He's backed out. So we're in the extraordinary position where a man who's dressed as a fox, campaigning on behalf of foxes, has looked at Lawrence Fox and said, "Nah, this is making me look ridiculous." So, yeah.
There's another candidate, I believe. It's the Rejoin EU candidate, and it's John Stevens, former Conservative standing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
He's one of the more...
Can't imagine he'll get many votes in Clacton. My team were in Clacton this week. They went to do Vox Pops, and they came back with lots of interesting intel and anecdata, because obviously it was an unrepresentative sample of people who were prepared to talk to them. And I think their main take, other than of course Farage is going to walk it, is that among the progressive-minded people they could find, there was this "I'm not voting" attitude because there's no point. And the thing that unites them with Reform voters is a real anger and disdain at the main parties for not running and not fighting it. I understand the reasons why the main political parties are trying to call Farage's bluff over this. And we may well have a second by-election, of course, if after this one he's reinstated as an MP and then the investigation concludes, and it may mean that he faces a recall petition because his suspension from Parliament is significantly long to meet that threshold, or there is a criminal proceeding that would land him in the clink. But my staff's take on it is that in that situation, if the main parties then did decide to put up candidates, even if they didn't spend money, if that was Andy Burnham's first by-election as leader of Labour Party Prime Minister, he would probably have to be seen to be trying to fight it. But their feel is that Labour could come third or maybe even fourth, that it could go Reform, Restore, Conservative, Labour, and that would obviously be an early puncturing of momentum for Andy Burnham.
I think there's a couple of points to pull out from that, because your work in Clacton itself is very useful, because there isn't any local polling available. We've only got a couple of national polls to go on, which predictably show Farage struggling and Binface very popular, but it's pretty much meaningless in terms of Clacton itself. But this idea that people are scunnered with politics in general in Clacton is what we might look to if we were seeking out an optimistic outcome. In other words, Farage's hardcore supporters turn out. There's enough hardcore anti-Farage supporters turn out to keep the whole thing very close. But then the message that's sent to politics as a whole is, look at how disappointed the voters of Clacton are with politics in general. What started out as a by-election with a joke candidate or two actually has reminded us that politics itself is becoming the joke. And then there's a second element I've not seen any take on yet, but what I'm calling the Widdicombe factor. In other words, what started out as a fairground in many ways has had to get quite serious very, very quickly. There are matters of taste here apart from anything else. And the one or two people I know out Essex ways have said that they get the impression that there's a seriousness returning. Now, whether that's good news or bad news for Binface, who knows? We have to wait and see. But for politics, it's probably quite a good thing that there's a bit of seriousness returning to this, because these are serious issues and there are serious times.
What we have to return to is that the Clacton by-election is not about Clacton. It never was about Clacton. even when Farage called it, it wasn't about Clacton. It was about Farage trying to evade scrutiny. And so the Clacton by-election, he was always going to win it and win it handsomely. And he will now win it even more handsomely since there are no other serious contenders in the field. And I think people need to stop projecting what they would like to happen onto a constituency that's pretty wedded to reform, if I'm honest. Clacton is not going to manifest your liberal London feelings. That's not going to happen. But, as I said, Clacton was always about something bigger than Clacton. It was about Farage trying to recover his national campaign, which had been flagging. And looking at the national polls, they're not buying the Clacton move. And I think that is really important. So if you look at what the country would like to happen in Clacton, by quite a margin, a majority would like to see Binface win. That says something, even though it won't happen, right? And if you look at all the polling since he called that election, we have 4 major companies coming in with their tracking polls, and More in Common has Reform down a point, YouGov has Reform down a point, Opinion has Reform down 2 points, and Find Out now has Reform down 2 points. The margin now, the difference between Reform and the closest second party is now between 3 and 5 points in all of those 4 polls. So the Farage move is costing Reform votes nationally. That is, I think, the optimistic take on the Clacton by-election, right?
For sure. And of course, what the people who are saying there is no point in me voting are saying is that they would like their vote to matter, and for us to have a system that incentivized parties to campaign in every seat, because they would be disincentivized from not running where they can't possibly win. And I do worry that if there are 10-20% of voters in every right-leaning seat across the country who are simply not voting because they don't see the point, then the very people who are being elected don't even know that there is a fifth of their constituency base that they need to be serving. And of course we need the change. The poll numbers shifting. I mean, we've not seen a bounce for Labour yet as a consequence of it being known that Starmer will go. Let's see if that changes when Andy Burnham takes up the role of Prime Minister. And most people are expecting that he will enjoy the usual new leader bounce. But at the moment, even with those little incremental drops for Reform, we are still headed for a Reform-led government propped up by the Conservatives as things stand at the moment. And of course, Kemi Badenoch over the last week has said, I'm going to purge my party of people that don't believe in net zero. Gavin Barwell, of course, who is Theresa May's spad, has said, I'm still not allowed back into the party. This is not a party that wants diversity of opinion and thought. So she is still anchoring that party in the space that Farage is occupying. So yes, it's not terrible news that his latest move hasn't paid off for the party nationally, but we're very much not out of the woods yet in terms of the next general election.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't suggesting we're out of the woods. I just think the direction of travel is a positive one rather than a negative one. You know, you could have seen a situation where from last year's high of 30%, Reform kept building, and they were now on 35% and on course to get a majority if they got their act together at the next general election. You've seen the opposite happen. You've seen their lead erode really quite steadily, and that is a good thing.
Quiet, Riot. You mind if we make one more stop before heading back? I need to run a Target.
100%. Let's RTT. You thinking of stuff for the dorm?
Yeah, my mom gave me some good tips on must-have essentials. We for sure need underbed storage, handheld iron for wrinkles, maybe even a mini Keurig for Mondays. Am I right?
All right, bet. Because I was already thinking about keeping my clothes looking fresh at college, so you better be sharing that.
Of course, man. Whatever I get on this run is yours too.
Twin!
But for real, let's go before they close.
Find everything you need for college at Target.
Quiet, Riot.
Alex, on Sunday, you were talking about the collective, let's say, failure of humour on the right, that they have not even tried to see the funny side in any of this. Has it reached a new level this week, that lack of sense of humour?
It really has. It really has, and but I hope we haven't seen the peak yet. I think there's more to come. Dan Hannon writing a full-page Telegraph thing criticizing Binface's economic policies was a new high, a new low. I don't even know what to call it. I'm loving it. From the man that created that brilliant article about where we would be round about now after Brexit, this land of milk and honey, from the man that gave you, no leaving the single market if we Brexit, for him to go and expend this amount of energy and oxygen and ink and paper to a full-page spread of a piece critiquing point by point Binface's economic. I mean, it contains passages that sound as if they are satire, but they're not. Let me read a tiny passage for you. Capping the price of a kebab is not a brave take on a glaring policy failure. It is what every halfwit who refuses to understand economics would do. If we did somehow fix the price of kebabs, the result would be a massive kebab shortage because it would no longer be worth producers' effort to bring kebabs to market.
He's angling for an invite to the Kebab Awards.
There is genuinely nothing in that is satire. It is completely, deadly, serious critique of Binface's policies. And the very funny thing is that he's got this one wrong. Like, he really majors on the kebab policy, but the kebab policy was never part of Binface's manifesto. What happened is Binface promised to cap the price of the Wigan kebab.
That's right.
When he was standing in Makerfield. Now, Wigan kebab is a sort of pie or bomb, right?
Inside 2 bits of bread.
Yeah. And so that was part of that campaign, and it wasn't about kebab, it was about a Wigan kebab. Now that he's come down to Clacton, his policies are completely different. I mean, just utterly delightful, can I tell you? It really is worth reading the full manifesto. It really is worth reading the full manifesto of Count Binface. So he's now talking about capping the price of a croissant at 1%, make water company bosses swim in polluted rivers, build at least one affordable house, bring back CFAX, restore the price of a 99 flag to 99p, force rule-breaking cyclists to ride unicycles, which he subtitles Justice, Balance, and Comedy. Abolish VAR, build a space bridge at Northallerton to solve traffic congestion for good, literally out of this world. Invite European countries to join the UK. Move the hand dryer at the men's toilets at the Crown and Trinity Max Bridge. That's a steady one. It's kind of wonderful that you get the entire right-wing press engaging with this as if it is a serious contest for lack of a serious contest. And I think that's the miracle that Binface has performed in Clacton.
There's something else as well, that all this nonsense, I think, is inadvertently legitimised Binface. He's been on the scene for quite some time now. But the moment that a former MEP examines your kebab policy with grave concern, I mean, you are ceasing to be a novelty candidate. He's becoming some sort of an insurgent think tank in his own little way.
He may not win this one, but he may win the next one.
I don't think he'd run in the second one.
No, Keir Starmer faced his last Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Let's have a little listen.
In fact, I remember when I started this job, the Prime Minister was very helpful to me, saying that I wouldn't last the year. Life comes at you fast. He spent a long time laughing that I'd lost control of my party. I think he should have been paying attention to his backbenchers instead of mine. But everyone in politics would do well to remember how quickly political fortunes can change. I know that he has been asked and he's being diplomatic, but on that note, does he have any advice for his successor?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will give my wholehearted support to my successor. I want this Labour government to be a success. I want our country to be a success. I shall give my support privately if asked for, not publicly when not asked for.
What did you both think of the occasion, as it were?
I enjoyed it, to be honest. I wouldn't ask for it every single week, but it was lovely. And I use that word carefully. It was lovely to see a more human side of politicians in an environment which, let's face it, has to be a bit spiky and a bit rambunctious.
Does it? We say that, but does it? Would our politics not be better if every week was like this week?
No, I think it would be fine for a week or two at most. Then we'd all be bored. I remember after the London bombings in 2005 that for a few days the Tube was a quite remarkable place. You know, people smiled at each other, they got up and gave each other seats. They said hello to each other on the Tube. There was this sort of shared sense that things had changed. Within a couple of weeks, chaos was back, the rudeness was back, normality had returned. And, you know, PMQs are rambunctious for a reason. Simpering politics, I don't think, is something that we should pine for. We should expect our elected representatives to roll up their sleeves and be seen to be battling on our behalf.
I don't agree. I don't agree that the alternative to rude and unproductive is simpering, though. I think there's much more in between those two things. And I know plenty of people who are bored or put off politics by the usual fare. I understand why there is still a part of your brain that's a tabloid person and longs for the heat of those moments. But I think a lot of people would breathe a sigh of relief and tune more into Prime Minister's questions if they actually were like this. What do you think, Naomi?
So I don't mind so much the ding-dong between the Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition. What I don't like is the kind of public school braying from the backbenchers, the rah, 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 and the ha ha ha, you know, the really aggressive.
Oh God, I hate it when they go away.
That's what I can't bear. And it's the male voices carry so much louder, and it just reinforces this old boys club establishment hellhole that is the very worst of Westminster. So I think I would be perfectly happy if it was just the Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, the Prime Minister, and then the people who have been chosen to ask a question that week. But I'd send the rest of them out. They can watch it on TV like the rest of us.
Do we think Starmer is the sort of, I mean, a much changed Starmer, I have to say. It really, since he decided to go, it's like a weight has been lifted and he's suddenly a much more human person. It's like
he never enjoyed that job.
Where was this guy?
Yeah.
But do you think he's the sort of person who will disappear for a long time, a la John Major, or backseat drive a la Boris Johnson, like get his own column and comment on what the government is doing every week?
Well, I tell you what, I'm still shocked that Rishi Sunak hasn't forced a by-election. I thought he'd have buggered straight off to Silicon Valley and never come back. So I'm not
that
so
he's
sure
been
I'm good
seen
at
a massive amount in
exactly.
the House of Commons.
Exactly. But I don't think he'll restand at the next election. And that election could come sooner than 2029 if Andy feels he's got to bounce and doesn't want to have all of the criticism from the media about a lack of legitimacy. You know, people saying, well, we didn't vote for you, let alone the things you're now trying to do. So he might say, okay, I'll go with the manifesto and go back to the country if the poll numbers are looking good. I don't know that Keir would stay an MP beyond this parliament, and he certainly doesn't give vibes of somebody doing a Johnson and backseat driver. And in fact, he said that very much clearly at PMQs. He said, you know, I will give private advice if asked, not public advice
if not
when
asked,
not asked. So I suppose that means more Major than Johnson. And there are a lot of rumours that he really would quite like a big UN job or, you know, some big international position on behalf of the UK government, which I think he would probably quite relish.
Has the ambassador position been filled yet permanently? What about you, Kenny? What do you think?
There's no way he's going to be a Johnson, is there? I mean, it's just not going to happen.
You might surprise us, though. You might surprise us, though.
Oh, my.
Let's just have a weekly column in the Express going, what a wanker that Burnham is. Now, on to Burnham, since we mentioned him. Shall we start with the appointment of Chancellor? There is gossip that he has buckled to the right of the Labour Party and may now not appoint Ed Miliband, although I emphasize this is just gossip. What are the best and worst case scenarios here?
If there is an option with no Shabana Mahmood at all, I would take that option. I don't think there is. And the gossip, as we came in to record, kind of contradicted itself. So on the one hand, there was Tony Diver at the Telegraph saying John Healey is coming back as Foreign Secretary. He'll move Yvette Cooper to the Treasury and leave Shabana in the Home Office. Then Kitty Donaldson over at the Eye almost immediately had different gossip saying the team is now pretty much locked in. Shabana will be Chancellor of the Exchequer.
What?
Yeah, and Ed Miliband will be Foreign Secretary as a SOP for all of that, and claiming that he couldn't be Chancellor in the end because too many of the
they're all throwing darts at a
backbenchers
dartboard,
have not
aren't
forgiven
they?
him for 2015 and the election defeat then, and so who the hell knows?
Do you get the impression they're throwing darts at a dartboard and just...
the journalists are, yeah.
Yeah. or, you know, to be kind to them, they are getting self-interested briefings of people who would like Shabana Mahmood perhaps to be Chancellor, saying, oh, it's locked in now, Shabana's definitely Chancellor, but that's very much someone in her camp that wants to make it happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that a
Maybe.
possibility? Kenny, you know how these background briefings work.
Yes.
Do people put out gossip about who's been appointed to what position that are basically designed to engender that?
All he puts out is gossip until you hear it from the number 10 press spokesperson on the record. It's bloody gossip. You can't trust any of it. You know, it's all grist to the mill. It really is. What fascinates me is I've heard the Mahmood as Chancellor gossip as well. If that was the case, though, what does he do with the Home Office, and how much of Mahmood's policies at the Home Office does he then ditch? And which policies does he keep? And then what does that mean for Mahmood, who as Chancellor is going to be in the awkward position of having to defend a new Home Secretary who is dismantling laws that she put in place? I mean, that is wonderfully entangled, and, you know, bring it on.
There's some really interesting points, I think, about what Andy Burnham is inheriting. Rather than a blank slate, there are a series of ticking clocks that his own party has set, right? So far beyond all of the external stuff that's happening, you've got the fiscal rules set by Rachel Reeves that he has pledged to keep, both the rules and the manifesto tax promises. So he's got a pretty brutal autumn budget ahead of him, and a spending review, and no obvious escape route for that. And then layered on top of that are 4 inherited trade-offs from within the own party that will hit within months. So you've got both the Alan Milburn and the Stephen Timms reviews on youth unemployment and PIP, and they both demand upfront spending before any savings materialise. You've got the Casey social care review, and remember, Burnham has promised to accelerate the review of social care despite every solution costing billions. And then you've got, as you mentioned, Kenny, Mahmood's immigration reforms, with 80 very unhappy Labour MPs threatening that experiment with looser whipping because they've already written to him saying they're unhappy with it. And of course, send reform, this sort of slow motion implementation at risk that isn't his priority but could completely consume his time. So there are a lot of internal pressures, as you quite rightly point out, of their own making that are going to hit and clash with one another very early on.
Well, listeners, I did try to keep this on the optimistic track, but somehow we veer towards all the ticking time bombs to come, because they are kind of inevitable in this conversation.
Quiet, Riot.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others In addition to my duties in this House, I have an important appointment with the television at 8 o'clock this evening.
Okay, so having said all of this, we have to finish with the thing that is happening in a couple of hours, the result of which will be known by the time this episode airs, but we don't know yet, so that listeners get a feel of just how much importance to attach to our various predictions. England versus Argentina. Let's go. Come on.
No, you start. You've got to start this time because you've done this to us before.
Okay, so shall I tell you, I won't be able to watch it. Ages ago, I booked tickets to the opera for tonight. And it is,
of course you did.
It is an opera that I really, really love called I Puritani by Bellini, and I have never seen on stage. And it is starring a couple of my favorite singers currently active. So it wasn't even a hard decision, I'm afraid. So I will be locked in the lovely Covent Garden Royal Opera House and will know the result when I come out of that.
And what are you predicting that result will be, Alex?
I am predicting that the result will be a marginal victory for England, something like 2-1.
But not going to penalties.
No, it might go to extra time, but it won't go to penalties. I think a lot of people attach a lot of the psychological baggage that we all carry, when it comes to England-Argentina games. We attach them to those games, but we tend to forget that actually the people involved in those games are all pretty much under 30. There's a couple of names that are just over 30, but they're all pretty much under 30, and they have no idea of all that emotional baggage. If they know it third hand, if that. And so they don't go into this game encumbered by all our, our phobias about the hand of God and all the stuff about the Malvinas and the Falklands, depending on what side you're
funny
in. So,
you should mention that. Funny you should mention that because the vice president of the nation of Argentina, Victoria Villarruel, who describes herself as a Catholic first and an Argentinian, has done a little tweet, and I thought I would read it out.
Go on.
Tomorrow we play against the usurping pirates. This isn't just another match. I'm not going to be politically correct or cold-hearted. Against the English, it is always something more. It's the Malvinas, it's Diego, it's Leo's last one, and it's putting the brakes on the invaders. Go Argentina, because until our last breath, we're going to claim what's ours.
First impression doesn't sound very Catholic. Right, so what's your prediction?
I think it'll be very, very close, actually.
You think penalties?
God, I hope not. Largely because I want to go to bed early. And it's just a horrible way to win and obviously lose. I'm going to say very, very close, 1-0 England.
Okay. How about you, Kenny?
I think I'm the only one who got the first prediction right, haven't I? I even had Kane scoring in the opening game.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got the closest.
Closest, yeah, with a 2-goal margin. Argentina, I reckon, have got the tournament experience. I think they've got the emotional resilience. They've got Messi. He's old, but he's still Messi. England, they haven't always played with their familiar sort of Premier League intensity.
We know which way this is going.
Yeah. So here's what's going to happen.
Always a Scot.
England are going to be broadly competent for maybe 118 minutes, and then there's going to be a single act of genius or of vicious naughtiness. There'll be something happens, and it will be discussed on bloody television until the sun consumes the earth. It is going to be close. Extra time, I think, is a given. Penalties wouldn't be a surprise either. The one thing we can say is that there'll be millions of English fans will be behaving as though FIFA had invented penalties on that afternoon if it does go to penalties. So I reckon it's going to be Argentina by 1 goal. Having said that, despite being Scottish, I hope it goes the other way. I'll be cheering for Kane and Croup.
Well, look, it means that there is at least one version of reality in which Andy Burnham enters number 10 the day after England win the World Cup, possibly declared a bank holiday. And intangible things like that can boost or doom a politician. You know, that rain falling on Sunak's head, it can't have helped. And so we shall see. What's our call to action? I guess watch the game, support England. I don't know, what is it?
Nah, we won't tell people who to
No, of
support.
course not.
The only certainty that we've got right now is that our live show at the Leicester Square Theatre on the 30th of July is happening, together with our pals at Lincoln Project and Byline Times. So please do head down to the show notes, find the link, grab a ticket. And if you can't come or you can't be there, can you share it with some people who you think might enjoy it? Maybe American friends in London, or people who just take a broad interest in Anglo-US relations. We would love to make sure that the theatre is full, so be there or be on a holiday somewhere very delicious.
Quiet, Riot. Okay, it's that time of the week when we see what's got the fash in a bash. Fash in a bash? Fash in a bash? What does that mean? It's time for Wokey Dokery.
Wokey Dokery.
Alex, what have you got for us?
The writer of The Boys, I don't know if you know the show The Boys on Amazon, based on the well-known comic, and the creator of Archive 81, that might be something you've heard of, and she's also one of the writers of The Vampire Diaries. So very much from that space, as it were, she's been hired to reboot Little House on the Prairie for Netflix. Now, the woman in question is called Rebecca Sonnenschein, and she is a lifelong Laura Ingalls Wilder fan. So actually, it's not as strange a fit as you might think. She has grown up with these stories and absolutely loves it, and has, can recite passages from the original books, and is very much on a mission to make this a success. But of course, the moment it was announced, the internet exploded in warnings and threats, I guess, expressed by some anonymous person on X that said, Netflix, if you wokify Little House on the Prairie, I will make it my singular mission to ruin you. And so
how could you wokify Little House on the Prairie?
That's the latest bone of contention, and I suspect the people hoping for an unwoke Little House of the Prairie will be very disappointed, because actually the original series was pretty woke.
Very woke.
And because all the books, especially the books that followed that original series, are incredibly woke, because they are all about the Osage, community there. So they have a lot of Native American families in them and stuff like that. And so I think we can take it as given that the thing that is woke this week is Little House on the Prairie. But
the tweetest thing ever
I
written.
know, but what I that's true of a lot of stuff around that time. There was a kind of consensus of what is decent and what is not decent, regardless of your political views. I've been rewatching quite a lot of the Golden Girls from that late 80s, early 90s era. And every week they would go on things like sexual assault or women's rights or, someone facing dementia or homeless shelters, or like every 3 or 4 episodes, they would do a social issues episode, and there would be no doubt as to what side the show's creators would be on. And I really like the fact that Melissa Gilbert, who played the original Laura, I guess, in the one but youngest girl in the original series, came out and said, watch the original again. TV doesn't get too much more woke than we did. We tackled racism, addiction, nativism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, rape, spousal abuse, and every other woke topic you can think of. Thank you very much for your watching all these years. And I thought that was just utterly lovely. And so
Beautiful.
This week, Little House on the Prairie, woke and proud of it.
Night, Alex boy.
That's
That
the
was the
Waltons.
Close, but never there.
And that is it for this week's main show. Thank you very, very much for tuning in.
Don't forget our latest Bayside episode is out tomorrow with a deep dive on Peter Theil's Palantir and how it has successfully meshed itself into oh so many aspects of our lives.
Remember to back our little show if you can by heading over to ko-fi.com/Quiet Riot Pod for as little as $5 a month so we can carry on bringing Quiet Riot free to everyone at the same time.
And if you can't stretch to that but can afford a one-off 20 quid, grab a ticket to our live show. And if that is out of reach as well, just leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts to help the show.
And our sister show Behind the Lines with the forensic Arthur Snell has a fresh episode out this week detailing the wins Kyiv is having over Moscow. That really is a must listen.
We love you more than a frozen margarita on a sunny afternoon. Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production from Cooler Heads, written and produced by Andreou, Naomi Smith, and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta, artwork by Simona Ganello, and edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot.